Cole Cubelic is joining us now on the Farm Bureau phone line. Go to favorites.com. Check out the home team. Cole, I got huge news here. We're actually going to talk about football. I have had enough expansion talk for one day. I don't know about you.
I'm expansioned out, but I'm also prepared to talk about it for the next few years because I don't think this thing is going to sell for a while. So,
well, we're going to get 10 minutes without. 10 minutes without. That's what we're going to talk about here. I know you're the film reader. You watch more of it than just probably about anybody in the conference outside the actual coaches. Players, this is a year where I feel like there's not, offensively anyway, the top level superstars that we've had in years past. There's no Tua, there's no Kyle Trask, and there's no Najee Harris. Who are if I said who are the top three offensive players in the conference this year? Who are they?
Offensive players in the conference, I would have probably Tank Bigsby towards the top of that list. I would have towards the top of that list. Kenyon Green would be towards the top of that list. I would like him even more if he was staying at guard, but kicking to tackle, I think I'd probably have him behind Evan Neal and Darren Kennard at Alabama and Texas A&M. Where I think it's less quarterback than it is wide receiver, because we have been so deep at wide receiver the last few years in the SEC with first-round draft picks all over the place, and there just doesn't seem to be that many this year. Now, I think there are a couple that we look at and we say, oh, yeah, they absolutely could be there by the end of the year. I think, obviously, Treylon Burks is a guy that is going to be one of the better receivers in all college football. Keyshawn Boutte has more receiving yards in a game than any receiver in the history of the SEC, which is pretty impressive. So, I think people kind of forget that John Mechie still had over 900 receiving yards last year. It's a pretty good season under most circumstances, but when Devonta Smith goes for 1856 and 23 touchdowns, it doesn't look quite as good. So I just don't know if we have as many game changers that are known commodities going in as we have the last few years. So, I would have Burks up there towards the top, Boutte up towards the top. I think obviously you have to have Mechie. I think he's a guy that could have a big year. And then I'm pretty high on Max Johnson at LSU. I think he's a quarterback that could extend. I think he wins that job, and I think he can have a monster season. I still think Connor Basic's going to be a really good SEC quarterback, and a guy that could have a heck of a career. So there are more unknowns, but I think there's still a ton of potential with those guys that would be towards the top of any list.
With those potential receivers, where would Jaden Walley from Mississippi State rank for you?
Yeah, I think he would be. He's definitely in the top 10. I think probably size comparatively to some of the other guys would maybe keep him out of the top 3 or 4. Burks is going to be towards the top. Obviously, he'd probably be my number 1. Mechie's going to be there. Boutte is going to be there. And then I think it starts to get a little bit crowded. I think if George Pickens was healthy going into the season, he would probably be one of your next guys in line. How do you count, A-Chain at Texas A&M, or even really, how do you count an Ananias Smith? I don't really know. They're kind of that Kadarius Toney role last year at Florida, where got a lot of reception, but he's not your traditional wide receiver, so to speak. But I think Walley is definitely one of the better wide receivers in this league.
Who do you like as far as offensive line goes? I saw your graphic the other day. Who are the top lines in the conference this year?
Kentucky's, I think, the number one group going in. I think that the team that has the opportunity to go furthest during the season is probably Georgia. They were outside of my top 5, but they just have so much talent, and they just have big physical maulers and guys that just absolutely look the part. We just haven't seen them all play together, and the little bit that I have seen them together, things hadn't been great. Unfortunately for them, a lot of that was the spring game, and just they didn't pick up a lot of stuff that I felt like they should have. Alabama's going to be there again. You obviously got a couple starters back. Evan Neal goes from right tackle to left tackle. It's a transition I think he can easily make. I don't think that's going to be problematic. I think the bigger transition for him was from guard to tackle. He handled that extremely well, and now he'll be one of the best tackles in college football this year. But you lose a lot. You lose Alex Leatherwood, who was a first-round tackle. You lose Landon Dickerson, who was the heartbeat of that football team at center. You lose Deontay Brown at guard, who was also drafted. So those guys can be tough to replace. I like the Ole Miss offensive line. I think Nick Broker is one of the more enjoyable offensive tackles in this league to watch. Obviously, getting Ben Brown back, a couple extra guys back that played a season ago. If they can continue to take a step and grow, I think they have a chance to be a really good group. Now, obviously, the switch in offensive line coaches, you don't know exactly how that plays out. We'll wait and see. LSU's got a lot to offer. I think Ed Ingram's can be one of the best guards in college football. They're going to be a physical group. And Texas A&M's not going anywhere. I know they lost a lot of starters, but when you think about Kenyon Green, who's probably the most talented offensive line in the league returning, you got a Matthews at center. I don't know about you, but I'm never doubting a Matthews in a football uniform. Like, that's just not going to happen for me. I'm always going to feel like they're going to be able to be successful. And then Laden Robinson at right guard, who came in against South Carolina last year and just looked like a monster. Like, I texted Jimbo after that game, and I was like, how are you going to keep this kid off the field? He's a war daddy. And then you get Jameer Johnson, who's actually played and started at Tennessee, who they'll just plug and go at right tackle. So I don't. And two, I think you're going to get a lot of split back looks with A&M, because we mentioned Anaya Smith, Devon Achane. You'll have those two guys that be able to do different things along with Spiller. And you should have two tight ends that should really be able to help you out this year with Kupp and Weidermeyer. So this could be a really interesting offense to watch there in College Station, but I do not think that offensive line takes a big step back.
I'm just glad you mentioned Ben Brown from Ole Miss, the latest in a great line of offensive linemen from St. Aloysius High School in Vicksburg, Mississippi, of which I'm a member. So I will enjoy my 2 seconds there. Quarterbacks, I feel like Corral and Daniels. Then who's number 3?
For me, it would be Max Johnson right now. For some of the reasons that I discussed earlier, I think he's got big-time poise. He's got a great arm. He's accurate, big arm. I think he's more mobile than people give him credit for. Obviously, we know the bloodlines are there. But, I think it's definitely crowded and definitely difficult to begin to select after that, because Emory Jones is a guy that I like a lot. I think he has a lot of potential. We've seen him in spot duty. For some reason, people just think that he's a running quarterback. I think he has a chance to be a pretty good passer in this league. Hadn't had the opportunity to put up those kind of numbers yet. Obviously, Connor Basic's a guy that I really like. I think he's a guy that can sort of separate this year, being a little bit more comfortable in the system. I wonder if he has the skill around him to really have a big year. I just don't know if that's going to be there. I'm just not sure if there's enough in place for him to really be that guy just yet. And then I think, listen, we have to mention Bryce Young, because he does have everything around him. And he does have a ton of talent. It's just that a lot of it's new, and a lot of it's new people in new places with a new offensive coordinator and a new offensive line coach, and obviously first-time starter. So we'll see how it goes, but I do think he deserves to be mentioned in that conversation. And, we kind of talked about this at Media Days. I like Will Rogers a lot. I think he's the guy that looked really comfortable late in the season when he was injected. And then when you got more young guys around him that seemed to be a little bit more bought into the system and the scheme, everybody seemed to be sort of flowing in the right direction on the same page. So I think there are a couple guys that really are not a lot of people are going to talk to that really do have a chance to make a jump. Rogers will be one of those guys. Now, speaking of not having much around him, I don't think Ken Seals has a lot around him, but he throws a really nice ball. The ball gets out quick. He's got a strong arm, and he's someone that if Clark Lee and his staff can find a way to put him in good situations, he can make some plays. He doesn't have anything. They lost Keon Henry Brooks to Louisiana Tech. You lose the majority of your offensive line. Your best receiver's gone. Tight end's gone. They just don't have much. And the guys that they did have left, including some on defense. So you just wonder exactly what that nucleus is going to look like around it.
Got about 60 seconds left. What is Georgia going to get out of Eric Gilbert this year?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I
don't even know if he's going to be out there. Everybody says he is, but Brian, I can't sit here and confidently tell you that I think that kid's going to be eligible. It's great to say it if you're Georgia right now, but we don't know. None of us know that. And then I think there are other hurdles, there are other obstacles that could potentially get in the way of that as we get closer to the season. So now, listen, if he feels good and he's confident and he feels good about himself and he's out there playing, then I think he could be a guy that could be sort of a big wide receiver / tight end H move guy that could do a lot of different things. I could see him catching 40, 50 balls and 8 to 12 touchdowns because he's that kind of a mismatch, and he's going to help you in the run game. So he could definitely help make them different, which they're very different in a lot of different places right now, and he would obviously continue that trend.
After a day of NIL and expansion talk, that was incredibly refreshing. Cole Cubelic, thanks so much, man. Really appreciate your time.
Hey, anytime, man.